You assume that prayer begins when pain ends. You wait for calm and then you speak. Yet the hurt does not wait. It interrupts plans, speech, and will. You ask whether pain blocks devotion or exposes its root. Yunus Emre confronted this question directly. He taught that the wound is not outside the path. It tests whether the path is real. If prayer is awareness of dependence, then pain is not an obstacle to that awareness, but its clearest proof. The wound names what words avoid. It removes pretense. You realize that you have treated suffering as an error, not a teacher. Emre insisted that what disciplines you is not against you. If pain clarifies dependence, does it not already contain the essence of prayer? You notice how quickly you turn pain into a project. You analyze causes, search for fixes, and demand a schedule for relief. You treat suffering like a technical problem. But the more you engineer solutions, the more the wound insists on being seen rather than solved. Yunus Emre warned against the mind's concealment strategies. He observed that clever arguments can delay the simple admission that you are not self-sufficient. You doubt your old approach. Perhaps the insistence on control is not reason, but fear in rational clothing. You begin to test a different stance. Less management, more attention. If pain keeps returning when you try to master it, is mastery the wrong aim? What happens if understanding replaces control? Yunus Emre lived in a culture of scholarship and devotional practice. He respected law and learning, yet he spoke a language that ordinary people understood. He stripped teachings to their functional core. He did not decorate pain. He interrogated it. He taught that genuine remembrance is not a performance, but a state. The state is verified precisely when loss removes comforts. In that era, as in ours, people sought prestige in words. Emre redirected attention to sincerity in being. He argued that a single honest moment under pressure can reveal more than 1,000 polished claims. If history shows that refinement often follows reduction, why should your refinement require additions rather than honest subtraction? Yunus Emre defined prayer as orientation of the heart toward the real. Orientation is not vocabulary. It is dependence recognized. When pleasure dominates, dependence is easy to forget. When pain intensifies, dependence is unavoidable. Therefore, the wound does not negate prayer. It activates it. You realize that you have equated prayer with requests and moods. Emre redefines it as recognition and truthfulness. Under this definition, the wound is the curriculum that removes confusion. It exposes attachments, shows limits, and returns focus to what does not borrow its being from circumstances. If prayer is recognition and pain forces recognition, then what you called interruption may be the most direct continuity. Are you willing to let definition change experience? You discover a conflict in the mind. Part of you wants clarity. Another part wants exemption. You want truth without cost. You want surrender without loss. You measure devotion by comfort, and you call discomfort failure. Yunus Emre described this split as the naf's defense, an identity that treats dependence as insult. It prefers the image of strength to the fact of need. The result is self-pity or anger disguised as justice. You watch this mechanism operate. It narrates the wound to protect the narrator. Recognition weakens the story. If the I that resists is built from claims, then pain is the audit that tests those claims. When the audit is honest, what part of the story survives? You stop treating emotion as command. Feeling is noticed, not obeyed. Fear appears and fades. Anger rises and falls. Grief widens and then settles. You remain with the fact of experience rather than the narrative about it. Yunus Emre called this patience, not as delay, but as stable attention. Under patient attention, emotion changes function. It ceases to justify reaction and begins to reveal structure. Where you cling, where you depend, where you hope. The wound starts speaking intelligibly. Not why me, but see this. Recognition replaces protest. You realize that endurance is action. It is the refusal to abandon awareness. If staying reveals what running hides, what does that say about the true direction of healing? Yunus Emre treated pain as discipline, a lawful adjustment, not random cruelty. Discipline is precise. It targets illusion and clarifies value. When attention wanders to status, comfort, or control, discipline recalls the major premise: reality does not bend to preference. You examine your patterns and see a quiet hierarchy: convenience above truth, approval above integrity, outcomes above meaning. Discipline reverses the order. It does not demand dramatic gestures. It asks for honest alignment. You recognize that the wound's authority comes from truth, not force. It asks nothing theatrical. It asks for consent to reality. If a correction is accurate, is it an enemy? If adjustment is what saves a structure, why call it harm? The central turn arrives. You see that the wound does not need to become prayer. It already is. It is the clearest statement of dependence. It requires no speech. It is the body of recognition. Yunus Emre insisted that sincerity begins where control ends. At that edge, language simplifies. Requests reduce to a single orientation. Let what is true stand. In that stance, relief is not the goal. Reality is. Strangely, peace increases when outcomes matter less than alignment. You are not passive. You are precise. You consent to what is in order to belong to what is real. If prayer is alignment and pain intensifies alignment, and has the wound not fulfilled the work you were postponing? As the claim on results relaxes, debate quiets. You do not argue with events. You question the self that demanded them. Yunus Emre called this quiet the sign of understanding. Stillness is not emptiness. It is order. Thoughts appear, but they do not command. Feelings arise, but they do not legislate. Attention remains available. In this availability, gratitude arises without sentiment. Gratitude is simply recognition that existence is given, not owned. The wound continues, perhaps, yet panic ends. If the essential good is orientation to the real, then the presence or absence of sensation does not judge the day. Can clarity remain even when conditions fluctuate? If it can, what was the true source of unrest? You ask how to live this insight. The answer is modest and firm. First, tell the truth about the wound without dramatizing it. Second, refuse the story that makes pain your identity or your enemy. Third, practice short, frequent acknowledgments of dependence throughout the day. Fourth, choose small acts that preserve alignment over large gestures that win appearances. Yunus Emre preferred sincerity in simple duties to eloquence in public claims. He measured practice by reduction of pretense. You adopt this measure. You do not wait for mood. You maintain orientation. When you forget, you return. When you resist, you notice. When you fear, you ask what value is being protected. If practice is steady, must progress be loud? You return to the opening question. Does pain block devotion or reveal it? The answer is now plain. Yunus Emre showed that the wound clarifies the fact of dependence, and dependence is the heart of prayer. You do not rush to reinterpret your history. You do not claim mastery. You accept discipline as precision. You choose alignment over outcome, truth over image, presence over performance. The wound does not demand admiration. It demands honesty. In honesty, thought becomes simple. In simplicity, prayer is continuous. The question that remains is not, when will this end? But how can I remain aligned? From this stance, the wound is not a barrier. It is the doorway that was present from the beginning.